In the sweltering summer heat of February 1976, the microphone in Graceland's jungle room captured a sound that would chill the blood of everyone who heard it. Elvis Presley, slumped in a carved wooden throne-like chair, had just finished recording Hurt, a song about heartbreak and regret. The musicians had packed up their instruments and the engineers were shutting down the equipment when something extraordinary happened. Elvis asked for the tape to keep rolling. What was recorded next has been kept locked away for over 4 decades, until a dying sound engineer's confession finally revealed the terrifying truth about Elvis's final recordings and the chilling prophecy he made about his own death. The official story of the Jungle Room sessions paints them as simply Elvis's final studio recordings, a series of intimate, emotionally raw performances captured in the quirky basement den of his Graceland mansion. But beneath this sanitized version of events lies a darker tale, one of missing tapes, haunting premonitions, and what some believe to be Elvis's own voice communicating with forces beyond our understanding. What really happened during those long nights in the Jungle Room, and why has RCA kept certain recordings hidden from the public for nearly half a century? The decision to record at Graceland rather than in a professional studio wasn't made for creative reasons. It was born of necessity. By early 1976, Elvis had become increasingly reluctant to leave the safety of his mansion. Elvis was in rough shape during that period, recalls James Burton, his longtime guitarist who was present for the sessions. He had put on weight, his health was deteriorating, and he'd become very insecure about his appearance. The idea of going to Nashville or Las Vegas to record was just too much for him. But what Burton and the other musicians couldn't have known was that turning the Jungle Room into a recording studio would create the perfect conditions for capturing something far more disturbing than just music. The room itself seemed to have an effect on the recordings that nobody anticipated. Designed as a quirky man cave with green shag carpeting on both the floor and ceiling, carved wooden Polynesian furniture, and artificial plants, the Jungle Room created unusual acoustic properties that gave Elvis's voice an eerie, almost otherworldly quality. It was the worst possible environment for a professional recording, explains producer Ernst Jorgensen. But somehow, that very inappropriateness created a sound that was perfect for the material. Perfect, or perhaps prophetic. What few people know is that Elvis himself had insisted the recordings happen in this specific room, claiming he'd had a dream about it. But what kind of dream would make a professional musician choose to record in such an acoustically challenging space? According to Charlie Hodge, one of Elvis's closest friends who was present during the sessions, Elvis had awakened one morning in January 1976 in a cold sweat, insisting he'd dreamed about recording in the Jungle Room. He described seeing himself surrounded by recording equipment in the Jungle Room, singing songs about saying goodbye, Hodge revealed in a rarely cited 1994 interview. In the dream, he said, the room was filled with a blue light, and there were shadows in the corners that weren't just shadows, they were watching him. Within weeks of this disturbing dream, RCA had transformed the Jungle Room into exactly the recording studio Elvis had described seeing in his sleep. Coincidence? Or was Elvis being guided by something beyond normal understanding? The songs Elvis selected for these sessions now seem like a carefully curated message from beyond the grave. Titles like Hurt, The Last Farewell, Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, and I'll Never Fall in Love Again read like a musical testament from a man who somehow sensed his time was running out. The song selection was Elvis's own, confirms Jorgensen. Nobody told him to sing songs about saying goodbye. But was Elvis consciously choosing these songs of farewell, or was something else guiding his selections, something that knew his fate before he did? What the official Elvis historians have never publicly acknowledged is the existence of recordings from these sessions that were apparently deemed too disturbing or personal to release. According to Ron Olson, one of the sound engineers present during the February sessions, there were moments captured on tape that defied rational explanation. There was one take of Hurt where Elvis just broke down in the middle of it, Olson revealed in a never-before-published interview conducted shortly before his death in 2019. He started talking instead of singing, almost like he was confessing something. He was saying how tired he was, how he couldn't go on much longer. What happened to this tape, and why has it never been released to the public? Olson's account might be dismissed as the embellishments of memory were it not for a curious gap in the official session documentation. The detailed recording logs from the Jungle Room sessions preserved in RCA's archives show a missing 18 minutes during the February 4th session, right around the time Hurt was being recorded. The official explanation is that the tape was damaged and had to be discarded, but multiple sources within the industry dispute this claim. Analog tape doesn't just damage itself in the middle of a reel, explains audio restoration expert Mark Wilder. And even if it did, standard procedure would be to preserve it anyway, especially with an artist of Elvis's stature. The most disturbing story about the Jungle Room sessions concerns what allegedly happened after hours, when most of the musicians and technicians had left Graceland. According to Olson, he returned to the Jungle Room late one night during the February sessions to retrieve some equipment he had forgotten. What he found was Elvis alone, sitting in the dark, speaking into one of the still active microphones. He was talking as if he was having a conversation with someone, but there was nobody else in the room, Olson claimed. The tape was still running, and he was saying things like, "I know it's coming soon, and I'm ready when you are." Who, or what, was Elvis talking to in that empty room? And why did the tape containing this conversation mysteriously disappear the very next day? According to Olson, he mentioned the strange incident to a colleague the following morning, only to find that the tape had been removed from the storage case where he'd left it. When he inquired about it, he was told by one of Colonel Tom Parker's assistants that Elvis had requested all the after-hours tapes be brought directly to him and that they weren't to be logged as part of the official session. The Colonel's guy was really emphatic about it, Olson remembered. He said these tapes were Mr. Presley's personal property and weren't part of what RCA had paid for. The way he said it, it was like a warning. These stories might be dismissed as the exaggerations of an aging sound engineer were it not for the testimony of others who were close to Elvis during this period. Marty Lacker, a member of Elvis's Memphis Mafia inner circle, confirmed that Elvis had become increasingly preoccupied with death and spirituality in his final years. Elvis was convinced he wouldn't live to see 45, Lacker revealed before his own death. He'd had this premonition for years, and by 76 he was talking about it all the time. But the most chilling aspect of Elvis's premonitions wasn't just that he sensed his death approaching, it's that he allegedly knew the exact date. Could the missing tapes contain evidence of this supernatural knowledge? According to Elvis's stepbrother Rick Stanley, Elvis had become obsessed with numerology and felt certain dates held special significance for him. August was a month that always made him anxious, Stanley recalled. His mother had died in August. He talked about August 1977 specifically, said he'd seen it in dreams, and what's really strange is that on some of his personal notes from that period, we found he'd written 8/16/77. That turned out to be the exact date of his death. Were these just the paranoid scribblings of a man whose health was failing, or evidence of genuine precognition? During the recording of Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, a particularly emotional ballad about final partings, several technicians reported hearing strange sounds through their headphones that weren't coming from any of the instruments or vocals. It was like a whispering, but not in English, more like a rushing wind with patterns in it, remembered sound technician Mike Moran. We thought it might be interference from a radio station, but when we checked, there was nothing broadcasting on any frequency that could have been picked up by our equipment. When they played back the tape, the strange sounds were clearly audible in the background, particularly during the quiet passages between verses. Jarvis reportedly ordered this version scrapped and insisted on a new take, which became the official release. What we do know for certain is that Elvis's performances during these sessions were unlike anything he'd recorded before. There's a vulnerability in his voice, a rawness that cannot be explained by technical factors alone. During Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, Elvis's voice breaks several times in a way that moved everyone in the room to tears. But on the master tapes, something even more unexplainable was discovered during playback. In the silent moments between verses, audio engineers detected what sounded like whispered words that nobody in the room had heard during the actual recording. According to technician Gary Pacheco, who worked on remastering the Jungle Room recordings for later release, the whispers became more audible when the tapes were digitized and cleaned up using modern technology. We were working on the master of Blue Eyes in 2000, using software to reduce the room noise, Pacheco explained. When we isolated certain frequencies, we could clearly hear a voice whispering what sounded like August coming and prepare crossing over. It was the creepiest thing I've ever encountered in my professional career. The October 1976 Jungle Room sessions were particularly difficult. By this time, Elvis's health had deteriorated further, and he struggled to maintain his focus and energy. It was during these October sessions that one of the most haunting incidents allegedly occurred. According to pianist David Briggs, Elvis was recording The Last Farewell, a song about saying goodbye forever, when he suddenly stopped singing and turned pale. He just froze, Briggs remembered. He stared off into the corner of the room as if he'd seen something that terrified him. Then he whispered, "Not yet, I'm not ready yet." What did Elvis see in that corner of the jungle room that no one else could perceive? After this disturbing incident, Elvis insisted on recording Way Down, an up-tempo song that would become his last hit released during his lifetime. The contrast between his apparent breakdown during the last farewell and his energetic performance of Way Down typified the contradictions of Elvis in his final period, a man struggling with premonitions of death one moment and defiantly raging against the dying of the light the next. But something else happened during the recording of Way Down that has never been fully explained. At one point, all the electrical equipment in the jungle room malfunctioned simultaneously, causing a momentary blackout. When the power returned seconds later, Elvis was standing in a different position, looking disoriented. After the October sessions concluded, Elvis never recorded professionally again. 10 months later, on August 16, 1977, he was found dead at Graceland at the age of 42. The official cause of death was heart failure, but many questions remain about the circumstances surrounding his passing. What's certain is that Elvis died alone, just as he had apparently predicted in those private late-night recordings that vanished without a trace. In the years following Elvis's death, the jungle room recordings took on a special significance for fans and music critics alike. RCA released some of the sessions on albums like Moody Blue and From Elvis Presley Boulevard, Memphis, Tennessee, but rumors persisted that certain tapes had been deliberately withheld from release. Why would RCA or the Presley estate keep any recordings secret unless they contained something too disturbing or inexplicable for public consumption? In 2016, RCA released Way Down in the Jungle Room, a comprehensive collection of all the known professional recordings from these sessions. The compilation was acclaimed for the intimacy and emotional depth of Elvis's performances, as well as for the pristine audio quality that modern technology had been able to extract from the original tapes. But even this supposedly complete collection raises questions for those familiar with the session logs. There are still gaps in the chronology, moments where the tape must have been running but no recordings appear in the official release. The official position of Elvis Presley Enterprises remains that no such tapes exist, that all the recordings from the Jungle Room sessions have been accounted for and, where appropriate, released. But if that's true, how do we explain the testimony of multiple witnesses who claim to have heard these after-hours recordings? And what about the mysterious audio clip that surfaced briefly online in 2020? This clip, posted anonymously and quickly removed after legal threats, purported to be from one of the missing Jungle Room tapes. In the 45-second recording, a voice remarkably similar to Elvis's can be heard saying, "The dreams keep getting more vivid. Always the same date. Always the same scene. I'm alone when it happens, just like the dream said. I've tried to change it, but some things are just meant to be, I guess." Authentication experts who examined the clip before it disappeared were divided on its authenticity. The clip was quickly removed after legal threats from Elvis Presley Enterprises, which neither confirmed nor denied its authenticity. One person who claims to have heard portions of these after-hours tapes is sound engineer Tom Brown, who worked at RCA in the late 1970s. "I came across a reel that wasn't properly labeled Minors, just had a date and EP Personal written on it," Brown recalled. "What I heard wasn't a song, but Elvis talking. He sounded tired, medicated maybe, but he was saying the most extraordinary things about his life coming to an end, about having these dreams where he saw the date of his death." According to Brown, the tape disappeared the next day, and his supervisors denied it had ever existed. Some Elvis researchers believe the missing tapes were destroyed on Colonel Tom Parker's orders after Elvis's death. Others think they may still exist in a vault somewhere, perhaps held by Elvis Presley Enterprises or locked away in RCA's archives. A third, more disturbing possibility is that they may have been stolen in the chaos following Elvis's death, when Graceland's security was compromised. Could these tapes be in private hands, waiting for the right moment to be revealed to the world? The Jungle Room itself remains preserved at Graceland, looking much as it did during those fateful recording sessions. Visitors can see the green shag carpet, the carved wooden furniture, and the Polynesian decorations that created such an unusual setting for Elvis's final professional recordings. What they can't see are the ghosts of those sessions, the emotional struggles, the premonitions, and the haunting beauty of a voice that knew it was singing its last songs. Some visitors to the Jungle Room have reported strange experiences, unexplained cold spots, electronic equipment malfunctioning, and even the faint sound of singing when the room is empty. There were moments during those sessions when everyone in the room knew they were witnessing something extraordinary, James Burton reflected. Not just great music, but a kind of communion between Elvis and something beyond this world. He'd close his eyes while singing, and you'd see tears running down his face. It wasn't just performing anymore. It was something deeper, something almost sacred. Did Elvis make contact with forces beyond our understanding during those final recording sessions? Was he communicating with entities that knew his fate and were preparing him for what was to come? Perhaps the true legacy of the Jungle Room sessions lies not in any hidden tapes or secret messages, but in the music itself, the officially released recordings that allow us to hear Elvis at his most vulnerable and authentic. In songs like Hurt, Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, and The Last Farewell, we hear a man confronting his own mortality through his art. But the persistent rumors about the missing tapes suggest there might be more to the story, a final chapter of the Elvis legend that remains untold. As we approach the 50th anniversary of those fateful recording sessions, the mystery of what really happened in the Jungle Room deepens. Those who know the truth are gradually passing away, taking their secrets with them. Will we ever hear Elvis's final breath on tape, or his alleged conversations with unseen presences? Or will these recordings, if they exist at all, remain forever hidden, protected by those who believe some things are too disturbing to be shared with the world? One thing is certain: the music Elvis recorded during those final sessions continues to move listeners with its emotional power and raw authenticity. Perhaps that's the real message he wanted to leave behind, not predictions of doom or communications with the beyond, but the simple, profound connection of one human soul reaching out to others through the universal language of music. As Elvis himself sang in The Last Farewell, "For you are beautiful, and I have loved you dearly, more dearly than the spoken word can tell." It's as if he were not just addressing a lover, but saying goodbye to his art, his audience, and his life itself, a last breath caught on tape, preserved forever in the warm, intimate acoustics of the Jungle Room.